Welcome one and all to the Firebrand Briefs. This is a special short episode of Firebranded. I am your host, always and as ever, TJ Haynes, the undisputed technician of the truth. Today, basically, I'm doing this. I'm responding to allegations that I'm lying. I'm committing theological fraud when I talk about why Catholics don't worship Mary. And when I put out the question there, you know what? I'll tell you, Catholics don't worship Mary, but I'm wondering now, do Protestants worship God? Oh, I'm catching a lot of heat off that one. Talking about that, we're going to talk about one news story, only one. Plastic surgeons recommending that we pause so-called gender-affirming care for people under 19. No gender-affirming treatment for children, but they're calling it a pause. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Again, this is the Firebrand Briefs, and I thank you for joining me, catching me live on YouTube, on demand on YouTube. I'm also streaming live to X. Follow me everywhere on socials, especially on X if you're not already doing so. Real TJ Haynes everywhere on social media. I'm the hottest thing on social media. You have no idea. The absolute hottest. My last post got 3 whole likes on social media. It's unbelievable. I'm telling you, they just can't take me. They literally just can't take me. So let's get into this. I've been catching a lot of heat, probably for about the past 2 months, because I posted a little video explaining why Catholics don't worship Mary. Protestants got really upset. I mean, really upset. They got upset on YouTube. They got upset on Instagram. They got upset on TikTok. They got upset everywhere. To this day, there are still comments piling up on that video on Instagram. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable to me. And I'll tell you, the Protestants are kind of funny because some of them are valid Protestants who are of goodwill, really want to follow Jesus and all that. But I'll tell you, most of them are nut jobs. And that's just the truth. I am not saying Protestants are nut jobs, and I have said in the past on this show that Catholics have our share of nut jobs, believe me. But the ones that are commenting, the Protestants that are commenting on that video, anywhere they comment on them, about 2/3 of them are completely crazy. I don't think that they're Christian at all. I think they're Jesus fanatics who pound a Bible, but they don't really believe in Jesus. They only think that they do. Now you watch. I'm going to catch heat on that one too. Listen, I have to be straight with you. I am not afraid of catching heat. Because what you call heat to me is shadow boxing. I'm fine with that. You want to throw heat my way? That's fine. Just be prepared to take what you dish out. Because believe me, I've got it. So here's the bottom line. I'm going to respond to this charge. First of all, let me show you a little bit of the video. You might have seen this already. This is on YouTube. I'm going to put a link to it in this episode's description. Worshiping God biblically is liturgical. This was in response to someone saying, I don't need the Catholic Church. I worship God with the Bible. Well, here's my question to you. Do you even know what worship is? Because people were worshiping, properly worshiping God for thousands of years before there was a Bible. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. What are they doing that you're not? Now, go back to that clip. Now listen again. It requires a priest. It requires a priest. Worship requires a priest whose function is to offer up the sacrifice for the people to God. Now, let me explain to you what this video was in case you haven't seen it. Basically, this is a response to the backlash I received for posting a couple of short clips, a couple of short reels from a different episode that really weren't, the clips weren't even addressing Protestants. It was explaining to Catholics what worship is. And then that became a whole response to why Catholics don't worship Mary or the saints, and so on and so on and so on. Because here's my beef. And I want to make this very clear, as I have done many times in the past. I do not have any animosity toward Protestants. Let me repeat. I do not have any animosity toward Protestants. I really don't, not even the crazy ones. But, and again, I have said this as well. It's okay that we don't focus on our differences. It's all right that we focus on what we have in common. I truly, truly believe that. But we don't have to pretend like we don't have differences. When and if they come up organically, talk about them. Debate them, maybe even passionately, but in a way that's friendly. You can be passionate and debatey while still being fraternal and charitable. That's my position. I don't think Protestants are evil. I don't think Protestants are stupid. Okay? But they are in error. That is just true. Now, people have received my theology, I'll call it my theology, my theological treatment of worship. What worship is, therefore, worship is the liturgy. Therefore, we can't possibly worship Mary even if we wanted to. But here's the thing. What comes up organically when you talk about that is this reality. This is what worship is, and therefore this is what worship is not. And so we have to ask Protestants, if this is what worship is biblically, and if you're kind of out of place here, you'll have to watch this video. This clip was only about 8 minutes, okay? I'll drop a link to it in this episode's description after the live stream. If this is what worship is biblically, and therefore we can't possibly be worshiping Mary and the saints, well, now we have to come to the next logical question. Are you worshiping God? Because if biblically worship is liturgical, it requires a priest, a consecrated altar, and a sacrifice, in our case, the Holy Eucharist. Well, if that's what worship is biblically, it's starting to look like you don't worship God. It's starting to look like we worship God in the Mass. It looks like we venerate, not worship, the saints and the Blessed Mother. And it's also starting to look like you venerate God, not worship him. My friends, this is not a knife I'm trying to lodge in the backs of Protestants. But if you bring up the conversation, that is going to be my response. Here is what worship is. Therefore, this is what worship is not. Therefore, we cannot worship Mary. Do you want me to stop there and not ask, what makes you think you're worshiping God? You want me to stop there? Now, here's the other beef I have. You know who else has taken issue with my treatment of that theology? Catholics. I don't want to say who. I mean, you wouldn't know their names anyhow, but of a theological bent, priests, theologians, not many, but a couple, over a period of time. Here's the thing. Okay, well, if a priest is taking issue with it, you must be wrong. No, because every time I get involved in this back and forth with a priest or a competent theologian, it always goes something like this. Well, technically you're right, but ... What follows the but is exactly what I say. Here's the problem. And I understand this. Believe me, I understand it. There are valid theologians or even some priests who don't like that this conversation about worship concludes with, hey, Protestants, maybe you're not worshiping God at all in your Sunday service. They don't like that because it tends to push people away. I get it. I get it. But are we supposed to ignore it? Because when I bring these things up, it's not to push Protestants away. I wasn't even addressing Protestants in those videos that people are taking issue with. When I bring this up, it's so that Catholics understand what the liturgy is. It's so that Catholics understand that the Catholic Mass is not just the Catholic version of Protestant Sunday service. The Catholic Mass is not the Catholic version of Protestant Sunday service. The Catholic Mass is categorically different. It's different in nature. It's completely a different thing. So what I'm trying to do is not push Protestants away, but to draw Catholics closer. Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing when we evangelize, when we catechize? Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? But often the pushback is basically, but we don't want to say that. We don't want to tell Protestants that they're not worshiping. Well, it's not like I go out there with a banner waving saying, hey, Protestants, you don't worship. It's the Protestants who bring this issue to me, which is fine. Which is fine. But if this issue is brought to me, this is theologically accurate, biblically sound, the response that they're going to get. And it logically concludes with, well, if this is what worship is, it's kind of looking like you don't worship. Forget about whether we worship the saints or Mary. It's starting to look like you don't worship at all. I have said this in videos in the past, and I will repeat it here because I realize not everyone watching this or listening to this hears or views everything that I produce. So let me make this clear. I am not saying that Protestant Sunday service is valueless. I am not saying that. I am not saying God does not hear them during their Sunday service. What I am saying is that that is not worship. You can call it praise. You can call it, I don't know what you want to call it, but biblically, if we're saying Bible, 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 y'all, then we cannot say that it's worship. And that's just the facts. So to sum that part up, I want to make this real clear. I do not think Protestants are evil. I do not hate Protestants. Protestants are our brethren. And I say that all the time. There are Protestants that I follow or cross-follow. I follow them, they follow me on social media, on Substack notes. But in the interests of keeping things friendly with our wayward brethren in the Protestant denominations, we cannot do that at the expense of Catholic identity within the church. We cannot do that because, my friends, we've been doing that for more than 50 years already, right? We've been watering it down, concealing it, masking it, hiding it. We've been doing that for a very, very long time. And look where we are now. Catechesis is in the toilet. Catholic identity practically doesn't exist. What has this gained? That we've opened our arms to our Protestant brothers and sisters while kicking our own children out of the house. I'm sorry, but it cannot stand. And so that's my position on that. Again, if you want to watch that video, it's about 8 minutes long. I'm going to drop it like it's hot, a link in this episode's description. If nobody's catching this live so far, so if you're seeing this live, nobody is, you're going to see that that link isn't there yet, but I'll put it there later. And then when I get this video edited, you might be watching the live version. Just check the description as well, because once this is edited, because I cut out all of the mistakes and the wait times and stuff, and I tighten it up a little bit, the edited version is going to be linked down below as well. I think I have also written a couple of articles on what worship is and isn't, but I think they are for paid subscribers only. I think. If you don't know, you ought to know. I run two websites. One is CatholicFirebrand.com, linked down below, CatholicFirebrand.com. That's basically my personal newsletter where I just go there, you'll figure it out. And my main headquarters is Stoking the Embers on Substack, which you can find at StokingEmbers.com. Check this out. And I really want you to listen to this, because if you're really interested in going deep into learning about the faith, not just, not a theology class, but practical application to truly and deeply understand the Catholic faith and how it applies to your lived experience. If some people are, and I'm not being insulting, some people are really not interested in going that deep. But if you are, you really need to check out Stoking the Embers, StokingEmbers.com, link in this description, because that's where I go very deep. CatholicFirebrand.com, my personal newsletter. I got the podcast on there. I also have articles on there. Those articles don't go nearly as deep. They're a little bit easier to take. They don't go as deep. They're not very full. They're good, but you get the point. So if you just want to light and easy reading, CatholicFirebrand.com. If you really want to go deep, StokingEmbers.com. Now back to the point. I think I have an article on Stoking the Embers about worship, but I think it's for paid subscribers only. Don't worry. This is not me trying to get you to pay for a subscription, which is only $5 a month, by the way. Yeah. Well, anyway, I'll figure this out. I do have something here I can link you to. Okay. Check this episode's description. There is a little article I can link you to on what worship truly is. Yeah, there are a couple of things that I can link you to. Okay. That you don't have to pay for. They're free. You'll find them on Stoking the Embers, and I'll place the links in this episode's description. Again, they will be free. Listen, if you go to StokingEmbers.com and you see a pop-up inviting you to subscribe, you really should, but you don't have to. you can click, no thanks, let me in. And you can go in and you can view most of the content that I have there is free. Okay, so if you do see that pop up, if you do see that pop up, just know you don't have to subscribe. But I kind of hope that you do, but you don't have to. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about plastic surgery and trans people. All right, from EWTN News, plastic surgeons group recommends against gender surgeries on minors due to low evidence of benefit. Written by, oh God, I'm not even going to try it. Written by two people. You'll just look at your screen. Okay, it's written by them. I can't pronounce those names. All right, Tyler Arnold is one of them. The other one is Amira Abuzaid. No disrespect intended, but I don't want to mangle your name, so I'm just not even going to try. In an official break with major medical organizations in the United States, the American Society of Plastic Surgeons issued a position statement this week recommending that due to the low certainty of benefit, plastic surgeons should delay surgeries related to treating gender dysphoria in children, including breast and chest, genital and facial surgeries until a patient is at least 19 years old. So basically, they're basically are saying this. There's really not enough evidence to show that this improves the lives of people who suffer gender dysphoria, trans people. There's not enough evidence. So on second thought, why don't we wait a little bit? My first problem with this is you always knew there wasn't enough data. You always knew that. Now you're saying maybe there's not enough data. How many people's lives did you ruin before you came to that conclusion that there's not enough data? How many people? You know what it is? What I think it is? I'll bet it's something like this in the mix. Not only did they not have enough data, but now they're seeing that they have data that shows this actually ruins lives. There are detransitioners, and detransitioners are coming out of the proverbial closet now saying, not only did this ruin my life, but no one even adequately prepared me to make this decision. Hear that all the time from detransitioners, right? There's data that the suicide rate amongst people in the transgender community, I hate that word, but okay, the suicide rate isn't even altered. You'd figure, well, now they identify as the opposite. They identify as a gender opposite to what they were born as. They identify opposite to their biological gender. Now they've had the hormone therapy. Now they've had plastic surgery. Now they look, seem, sound like the gender they think they're supposed to be, the gender they identify as. Well, now they're going to be happier, right? It's not showing that way. It's showing, I haven't done an exhaustive study on this, but it seems to show that the suicide rate are not improved, are not lowered, are not impacted. The presence and vocal nature of detransitioners, same thing. These people don't seem happy. I just wanted to give a thumbs up. Somebody in the chat room, Ben Thorpe, said, I like your channel vibe, TJ. Thank you, brother. I really I saw that while I was talking, and then I was like, oh, that's cool, man. Thank you. So I had to give a quick thumbs up. But moving on. So that's what I think. Not only is there not enough data to show that this is helpful, there's beginning to be an abundance of data to show that it's harmful. Well, you should have figured that out a long time ago, before you did the first surgery. You should have figured that out. The article continues. Or does it? Yes, it does. In its February 3rd statement, the ASPS, which represents more than 11,000 plastic surgeons, or 90% of those in the United States and Canada, said there is, quote, insufficient evidence demonstrating a favorable risk-benefit ratio for the pathway of gender-related endocrine and surgical interventions in children and adolescents. Basically, what I just told you. That's basically what that says. Okay? Now, why am I talking about this on a Catholic podcast? You know, I don't shy away from politics or political topics. I really don't. But here's the thing. If it doesn't help to make Catholics better, I usually just avoid it because what's the point, right? Why am I bringing this up? First, the obvious reason, this is good news. However, what you just read, they should have concluded decades ago. Okay, that's number one. Why didn't you come to this conclusion sooner? I think now that one of the reasons why they came to this conclusion now is because now there are lawsuits going on. I've been writing about it on X. If you're not following me on X, you're stupid. Real TJ Haynes on X. I post posts, my thoughts on a range of things, including politics and stuff like this. And I post short, easy to read articles there on X, Real TJ Haynes. But anyway, there are lawsuits in the mix. I think presently there are like 28 of them that are ongoing. There was one victory that happened just this past week. A young woman was awarded, I think, $2 million because she says she was not adequately prepared to give informed consent because she wasn't informed of some of the ramifications, some of the consequences of gender transition. Okay, and now there has already been, anyway, let me not get too heavy into it. This is supposed to be a quick one. So because they're in lawsuits now in action, and so far they're favoring the plaintiffs, the people who are bringing these lawsuits, now they're saying, let's hold up, folks. I think they figured us out. I think they figured out the grift. Let's put a pause on these surgeries. My other thought is, I don't like that it's a pause. I don't like that it's a pause, okay? This should just be stopped, not just for children, but for everybody. But here's the trouble. There's too much money to be made by butchering people, far too much money to be made. So until there's major backlash and evidence that points once again to the fact that people with gender dysphoria need psychiatric or psychological help, not surgery, not hormones. Until that comes back to the foreground, I don't think this is going to be stopped, but it should. Now, the Catholic angle. Gender is extremely important, my friends. It goes way beyond girls have this kind of plumbing and boys have that kind of plumbing. It goes way beyond that. Gender, I'm really dummying this down, but I'm trying to deliver this in a way that you can really connect with. Think of gender as the nuclear engine that drives who you are. And everything about you, absolutely everything about your personality, your character, is built on top of that foundation. That's your gender. It's not just your genitals. It's not even just your chromosomes or your hormones. Those are parts of what's built over your gender. You understand? Everything about who you are is built on top of what I'm calling, it's not a theology lesson, folks. I'm just trying to make it simple for you to grasp, okay? What I'm calling the nuclear engine that drives everything about who you are. Everything. Folks, if you're being affectionate to your spouse or your significant other, I don't mean sexually, but that's another story. But if you're, even that affection proceeds from your gender. It's driven by the reality of your gender. It's the power behind what is the human person. It is the power behind what is the human person. It comes to us from God. It is not a creation. Your gender is not a creation. Your gender comes from God. It's part of his own glory because you are created in his image and likeness. You understand? It's not, your gender is not a creation. You are a creation. Your unique person is a creation. But the masculine and feminine genders are not. They come directly from God, and God is eternal. You understand? Gender is very important. Why am I telling you that? Just to make you feel good? Just to tickle your ears? We have been assaulting gender in the human order for, I'd say at least since the 70s, the 1970s. We've been assaulting gender. Really, the devil has, but he's using us to do it. Because if gender is that important, if it's the driving force behind not just the human person in general, but specifically your human person, then a way and a significant way to undo the human order is to undo human persons. And a significant way to do that is through gender confusion, by disempowering genders. You've been seeing this for a long time, right? Men shouldn't hold doors for women because it's condescending. Women are strong. They can hold their own freaking doors, right? Or men shouldn't worry about being too manly. Folks, I want to be really clear. I do not consider myself the most manly man that I know. I really don't. I really, really don't. But I'm masculine. Men shouldn't be too manly. You shouldn't be too affirmative. You should soften your appearance. I remember in the 80s, there was a fad. Some guys were wearing blush. Very little, but you knew it was there. Recently, one of my kids got to watching Fuller House, which is a modern spinoff of the 80s and 90s show Full House, in case you don't know. And one of the guys in there, the guy who played DJ Tanner's boyfriend in the 90s version, the 80s, 90s version, he comes back. He is now a recurring character in the modern version, Fuller House. And I looked and I said, my God, he has blush and lipstick on. He's wearing blush and lipstick. Needless to say, the kids don't watch that show anymore. Now, he wasn't wearing it like a transgender person. He wasn't wearing it like a drag queen, but it was definitely there. The softening of men's appearance. There has also been a hardening of the feminine appearance. So this gender confusion has been going on since at least the 70s. You might argue it's gone a little further back than that, maybe. It's how we dress, it's how we talk, it's how we walk, it's how we accessorize, right? And I'm not going to go down into specifics because I don't want to risk offending some people who might be in the audience who accessorize and adorn themselves these ways. So I'm going to end it there. I'm going to end that point there. But I can drill down into some specifics, believe me. So the point I'm trying to make is gender confusion and the softening and confusing of the genders has been going on for quite a long time. Now, here we are, where not only are people saying, well, gender is fluid. It's possible that you were born a biological male, but you're not actually a male. You think that just happened last year? Oh, no. Oh, no. The stage was set decades ago for that. Now, in the 80s, which is as far back as I can go, in the 80s, there were people asserting, yeah, I was born in the wrong body. But that was extremely rare, extraordinarily rare. And I believe it was still considered in the 80s a psychological condition, not a real thing, not a physical misalignment, but a psychological condition. But we're seeing this more frequently now. This gender confusion, this maybe I'm trans, and so on and so on. And now there are anyway, let me end it there. The point I'm trying to make, my friends, is this. You really have to own your gender. Depending on your age and what generation you come from, I'm Gen X, the greatest of all generations. Depending on that, you may have some gender confusion yourself, right? Men today don't like to suffer, for instance. I mean, believe me, I hate to suffer. But if I have to, I will. I'll run into it head first if I have to. I just don't prefer to. I guess nobody does, right? Men today have some gender confusion. Women today have some gender confusion, right? I'm not saying everybody is trans. I'm saying there are men and women with gender confusion. You have to be careful of that and tighten up. Tighten up. You don't have to go bravado. You don't have to go superhero. You don't have to go make-believe. You don't have to leave the house dressed like a lumberjack, which is something that really pisses me off. Can I be really frank with you? I am so tired of seeing memes and these inspirational images on X where it's like, fellas, remember to be manly men. Here's a guy in like flannel, which I do wear flannel, but a flannel and his long bushy beard, and I don't know, he's tearing apart an animal and throwing, he's eating half the animal and throwing half on a grill or something, and he looks like Paul Bunyan. I don't look like that. I don't plan to look like that. I don't think people should feel like they have to look like that. This is like the look, the long bushy beard. It's like the look. Dressing like a lumberjack. I just don't understand that, but I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying I just don't get it. I'm not saying you have to be more manly on the outside. You have to be more masculine on the inside. Go to war with yourself. Go to war against your vices. Throw yourself into the service of others, especially your family. I mean, first and foremost, your family, right? I'm not saying you have to be more manly or more womanly on the outside. Maybe you do, but maybe that'll come later. Be more masculine or more feminine on the inside. You understand? Fellas, amp it up a little bit. Ladies, tone it down a little bit. Oh my God, can I tell you something? Let me just first catch up to see who's saying what here. Oh, so Catholicism and Coffee. You should check out Catholicism and Coffee on YouTube, by the way. Catholicism and Coffee, no spaces. He and his wife do good stuff. He says, oh, those pics on X are so ridiculous. They get on your case if you dress well. They get on your case if you dress well for Mass. Oh my God, it drives me crazy. Again, I'm not criticizing. If that's your image of, if that's how you imagine yourself being manly, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Just make sure masculinity doesn't become a costume, because then you're going in the wrong direction. Okay. Erwin says, it's especially interesting when those same Protestants don't reciprocate. Looks like I missed something there. Sorry. I'm also sick of Catholics acting like Protestantism has legitimacy. You know what? I'm going to say something about that, and just don't leave me, folks. I'm going to tell you something that really gets under my skin. The reason why I said, ladies, tone it down. But I want the chatters to know that they are recognized, that they are seen, and that they matter to me. So I don't want to go too far off the rails without acknowledging some of them. Ben says, I am also sick of Catholics acting like Protestantism has legitimacy. And thank you, Ben, for liking my channel, by the way. P.S. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe ASAP if you're catching this on YouTube. Final plea, Real TJ Haynes everywhere on socials. I would say especially on X is where I've been the most active, and I really do enjoy it the most. Anyway, so Protestantism has legitimacy. Here's the thing. The church teaches that Protestantism, or it depends on which Protestantism we're talking about, isn't altogether illegitimate. The church teaches that they are our wayward, these are my words, but it reflects what the church teaches, our wayward brothers and sisters. They are Christian, most of them. They are Christian, but they are separated from the body of the church, okay? Because when we're talking about Catholicism, we're talking about the Christian faith and the Catholic religion. Now, that comes from Jesus Christ and the apostles. So you cannot separate them. They are inseparable, okay? The Christian faith is, so I think in Vatican II, it says the Christian faith subsists in the Catholic Church. They came here together, okay? The Christian faith and the Catholic religion. Okay, to be Christian is supposed to be Catholic. To be Catholic is, of course, you're Christian. Where Protestants err is they've separated one from the other. And that's why there used to be one, and now there are 30,000 of them. And that's why, and Protestants, I love you, but this is just the truth, okay? I've been fielding hundreds and hundreds. I haven't been responding to all of them or reading them all like a book. Hundreds and hundreds of comments to this video I made, mostly on Instagram, talking about worship and why we don't worship Mary. Hundreds and hundreds. Let me tell you, each of these commenters seems like a pope all to themselves. They each seem like their own denomination. when they voice what their understanding of theology is. You would swear to God they're each a denomination unto themselves. My friends, I understand not every Catholic is a clone of every other Catholic. But if you get 1,000 Orthodox Catholics, doesn't matter where they fall on the political spectrum or the theological spectrum, you get 1,000 Orthodox Catholics, they're all pretty much going to sound the same. That is not the case with Protestantism. That is just the truth. And if you deny it, you are lying to yourselves or you are delusional, because that is just the truth. Moving on. So is Protestantism legitimate? Depends on what you mean by legitimate. What I will say is this: we cannot, and the church does not, regard Protestantism as having parity with Catholicism. It doesn't. And I may get in trouble for saying that, but it's just the truth. It has no parity with Catholicism, but it also is not paganism. It also, let me just end it there. It also is not, there is a legitimacy to it because many Protestants, for instance, mainline Lutherans are legitimately Christian. Mainline Anglicans and so on. There are Protestants who are legitimately Christian. Yeah, I had the wrong camera on that whole time. There are Protestants who are legitimately Christian. And there are many Protestant denominations that, well, there are some that are just not Christian at all, even though they call themselves Christian, Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, and so on. And then there are some that are legitimately Christian. They baptize in the name of the Holy Trinity and all of that. Okay, so that makes you a Christian. They believe in the Bible. Okay, that's great, except it's incomplete because you separate yourself from sacred tradition. Okay, but hopefully we'll get you there. So there are Protestants who are legitimately Christian, but their Christianity, though legitimate, is highly, 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 highly flawed. Highly flawed. I am not saying it is all Protestants, but I'm saying it is all over the Protestant denominations. So is Protestantism legitimate? Depends on which Protestantism and depends on what we mean by legitimate. But by and large, they're legitimately Christian and some are not. By and large, they're not crazy and some are. But entirely what we can say is universally true of them is they are incomplete. They are fractured. They are separated from the body intended to be in union with the Christian faith, the church. Intended. That's not incidental. It's not accidental. That's the way Jesus formed this. Christianity and Catholicism are not two slices of bread brought together. Catholicism is Christianity. Catholicism is Christianity. And Christianity sometimes is not Catholicism, but it's supposed to be. It's intended to be. That is the desire of God. I will say that. It's complicated, Ben. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to appeal to every rational and legitimate and valid side of the argument, and I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit because it really is that complicated. But I will say this, to your point, we cannot believe that Protestantism is just another version of Christianity. Christianity is Catholicism. We cannot say Protestantism, Catholicism, what's the difference? Massive, massive, massive difference. We have things in common, but there are differences. Okay, so enough said about that. Let me tell you why I said, ladies, tone it down a little bit. This is my personal experience, okay? Your mileage may vary. It's my experience. I feel like, no, this is true. This is my personal experience. Modern women are often trying to outmen the men, or trying to outman the men, damn it. They're always trying to not just compete, but to measure up and to surpass, right? So when modern women get aggressive, they get like hyper aggressive, verbally, usually not physically, but it's like some of the worst episodes of aggression I have experienced easily in the past 15, 20 years were not against men. It was women. The worst language, the foulest language I have ever, folks, I was in the United States Marine Corps. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. You think I don't know from vulgarity? Oh, I know from vulgarity, believe me. okay, between that and the Marine Corps. The most vulgar language I have ever heard from women. Vulgar, piggish. Like, how do you even conceive of phrasing like that? Unbelievably vulgar, hostile, aggressive. I'm not saying they're barbarians walking all over the place, but I'm telling you, when they get on a tear, modern women, not all, of course, not all. I'm just saying what I find, okay? Of course, it's not all. When they get on a tear, Lord have mercy. I feel like they try so hard to out-male the men, but you can't out-male the men if you're not a man. So they have to try extra hard, and so it comes out extra aggressive, extra vulgar, and so on. Extra piggish. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Folks, I'm not a prude and I'm not a Puritan. So when I tell you it's unbelievable, take it to the bank. Bet on it. All right? Don't bet against it. You'll lose your money. Believe what I'm telling you. That's why I'm saying, ladies, tone it down. And fellas, amp it up. You got to amp it up. I'm not saying you have to leave the house dressed like a lumberjack. You have to act like a caveman. You know, there is such a thing as toxic masculinity. There is such a thing as that. There's also a thing of toxic femininity. But what most people call toxic masculinity, oftentimes, that's just men being manly. There is such a thing as toxic masculinity, right? And the whole machismo thing. And what are you going to do? You want to step outside? I'm the first one to say, nope, don't want to step outside. I don't dig that. You want to step outside? Seriously? That's toxic masculinity. You can't just, you really? There is a thing as toxic. There is such a thing as toxic masculinity, but what most people call that, it's just men being manly, or maybe men being imperfect men, but not being toxic. And I think because men don't want, even if they don't have that phrase or that word in their minds, toxic masculinity, younger men growing up today, or who have grown up through over the past, let's say 20 years, are so fearful of being regarded as toxically masculine that what they do is they just turn off masculinity entirely, or they try to. But you can't, because gender is a force. It's a power. It's going to express itself somehow, somewhere, maybe in secret, maybe just amongst your friends. I don't know. But what happens then is men become disintegrated with themselves. Maybe I'll do a separate show on that, but that's more of a stoking the embers thing. That one would go real deep. That would have to be a stoking the embers thing, not a firebranded thing. Okay, so I guess that's about going to do it for me. Listen, folks, check this out as I bring the show to a close. Remember to check you're not going to find links there now, but I'll add links later to this episode's description of some of the things that I talked about today. Check me out at CatholicFirebrand.com and sign up for that newsletter. In that newsletter, I basically sum up everything I've done for that week or in the last 2 weeks, things that I've written, articles I've written, new episodes, stuff like that. Or if you want to go deep, deep, deep into the truth, StokingEmbers.com. That's Stoking the Embers. That's home base for your man here. And sign up for that newsletter. And it's a website. There's articles there. There's my podcast there and stuff. You'll figure it out. Just go to StokingEmbers.com. Lord have mercy. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. You'll figure it out by yourself. This has been an episode of Firebrand Briefs. That don't come out right at all. I don't like the briefs part in that. I don't like the briefs part in that. That seems looking for a joke almost. It's almost inviting somebody to make fun of it. But this has been an episode of Firebrand. This has been a Firebrand Brief. That's what I'll do. I'll call it Firebrand Brief. If you like what you're getting here on YouTube, you better subscribe because I'm probably going to be here more frequently. All right? But in any event, this has been an episode of Firebrand Brief. I am TJ Haynes, host of Firebranded, which you can find here on YouTube. You'll find it on iTunes and Spotify and everything. Check me out everywhere on socials at Real TJ Haynes, especially on X. I'm super active there. Thank you for catching me live or on Catholicism and Coffee says, it sounds like something from Captain Underpants. It absolutely does. See, I knew somebody was going to come up with something. Real TJ Haynes everywhere on socials, especially on X, where I'm most active. God bless you, my friends. Oh, by the way, join the Discord, man. Be part of the action. You'll find the Discord link here on YouTube, and you'll find it, I think I have it on. Anyway, go to YouTube, Catholic Firebrand on YouTube, Catholic Firebrand on YouTube. You'll see the link there. Join the Discord, man. Be a part of the action. TJ Haynes signing out of here. God bless you. God be with you all. Bye-bye. Lord have mercy.